While many of us enjoy preaching, the actual task of writing and preparing sermons can be hard and tedious. Now, one thing we do unique at New City that we found really helpful is being ahead in sermon prep. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to give you 6 benefits of staying ahead in your sermon prep.
Well, welcome back to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less, we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Androsi, and joining me is Dylan Dodson. And today we're talking about 6 benefits of staying ahead in your sermon prep.
So we've talked about this in various episodes at times about why at New City we're ahead and why we think it's helpful. So we're going to be specifically talking about that in this episode. Here's the first reason. Some of these may make sense. Some of them maybe didn't think of, but I think it's a good idea.
Hopefully they all make sense.
There we go. First one is this, that Mondays have way less pressure because whether and regardless of like when your main sermon prep day is, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday night, which we wouldn't recommend, there's still always the pressure of Monday morning of like, oh, Sunday is coming and I have to get another message prepared.
Yeah.
And we've talked previously, I don't know which episode it is, but it's somewhere in the preaching ones. You can search them out about kind of what my routine is. But it just, regardless, for Monday for us, because we're 4 to 5 to 6 weeks ahead, is the sermon is 80% done, like it's written. All I have to do week of is reduce my notes and add some stories, illustrations, and go over it and kind of refine it. But there's no pressure to start from scratch. And that's really probably one of, if not the biggest thing of all of these about being ahead in sermon prep, is that you're not starting from scratch every single week.
Yeah. I always, not being a full-time preacher myself, I always thought Mondays would be kind of would be kind of weird for a pastor, because on one hand, regardless of how experienced you are, Mondays would probably be a little bit restful, because Sundays is usually sort of stressful or just tiring, whatever you want to say. So I feel like Mondays would be kind of time for rest a little bit, but also then there's that, well, here comes next week, and so yeah, I mean, having a little bit of pressure off on Mondays, I'm sure would be a big help.
Yeah. So again, you still have to get the sermon ready, but there's just way less pressure when you're not starting from scratch, regardless of when your main day is to get ready. You still think about it Monday, the next Sunday's coming. And so that's the big thing. This goes with number 2, because you may be thinking, well, Dylan, you still have to write a sermon at some point.
Sometime.
Here's the second point, that you aren't forced to come up with something every week. So yes, you do have to write the sermon. So for me personally, 4 to 5, whatever weeks ahead, like Tuesdays is my main day. So Tuesday I'll spend a good part of the day writing a sermon for a future week. But there's not a pressure to nail it down and get it all good that day, because there's time. And so yes, you still have to start from scratch at some point, but you aren't forced to do it week of. And if you have a vacation, if you're going out of town or whatever, and you're still having to preach that Sunday, you're not having to, or you can take a week off. So last week, as of this recording, was Labor Day weekend. And so even though my prep is on Tuesday, I did my Monday stuff on Tuesday, and I didn't write any sermon that week. And I was able to do it because I was far enough ahead that I could take a day off and not have to start from scratch. And so, A, you're not doing it week of, but B, if there's stuff going on and you're still preaching on a Sunday, you're not starting from scratch. So again, it takes the pressure off, and you're not forced to come up with something if you need to take a week off or whatever what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, I've never understood, there's a lot of kind of things I don't really understand about the whole almost waiting till last minute to prep a sermon. And I get there are pastors that do it and do it just fine, but when life happens, and if like an emergency happens or something like that, I never understood how you kind of factor that in for those that wait until maybe the end of the week. If there's a medical emergency or something like that, what happens then? Is it something that you tag someone else into or something like that, or just kind of cram it in the middle of the night? I don't know. So this definitely, and we've seen it play out where you're going out of town, or you guys had a baby, things like that, and we're not having to freak out and trying to figure out what to do, but we're far enough planned ahead that you just end up being 3 weeks ahead instead of 4 weeks ahead.
Get it at a time. So that's what I found really big, is even if you just don't feel like writing a brand new sermon that week, if you're ahead, it gives you the ability to do that, whatever the reason might be. So Mondays have less pressure. You aren't forced to come up with something every week. The third one may make sense because it's true, is that you have more time to add stories or illustrations or have various research. And so there's nothing worse of especially if it's getting close to Sunday and you're prepping a sermon and you have this idea and you can't think of a story or an illustration, or you need to research something, or you need to call a friend who had some experience and you want to include the story, but you can't remember all the details. When you only have a few days to do it, there's often going to be times where you can't do anything about it.
Oh, yeah.
But there's been countless times, because we're a few weeks ahead, where I was like, man, I'm not sure what this is. And so I could call someone, I could ask someone, I could email, I could ask somebody to figure it out. I could do like a few times, like ask Facebook, like give me a time when you had this happen in your life.
Yeah.
And it's not like Saturday night, I hope 2 people comment, so I have a story. There's just plenty of time. Now, granted, it's not like I write a sermon and I'm thinking about it every week. I'm not. But I do know if I need a specific illustration or story that I have time to get it, which at the end makes your sermons better, because you don't have to try to rush and cram if you can't think of what that particular illustration, story, whatever it is in the moment.
Yeah, and one thing to go along with this, maybe this should have been a separate point, but it gives you time to collaborate with others on the message. That's something that we do, which we talked about before, is we every week, we as a staff come together, and Dylan or whoever's preaching that Sunday goes through the message or goes through the main points in the text, and we kind of flesh out some issues and just kind of talk through it. And sometimes we have feedback, sometimes we don't, but it helps when he needs illustrations or stories. Obviously, he doesn't necessarily take stories that happened in our lives and apply it to himself, but we can give stories that, hey, this kind of applies, and it might help jog a memory or jog some things in his mind.
And I can't remember what episode it is, so I'll just do it real briefly, kind of how we do it here. Yeah. I'll write a message Tuesday, and typically the next week, although sometimes week of if we're behind, we'll get together and plan for an hour. I'll put my outline on the board. I'll talk through it, and you guys give feedback, stories, which is really helpful. And then I don't look at it till week of. Mm-hmm. But again, it gets another opportunity to have feedback when you're a couple of days removed from writing it yourself, that you can reflect on it, all the benefits of it. Yeah. But that's a big big point, is that you can add these things. You can talk to people that you can't do if you're writing it. You don't have much time to get feedback because you got to give it that week.
Right. And myself being someone who doesn't preach every week, but the times that I do, having that time where you can collab with others and get their feedback and get their maybe illustrations that came to mind that didn't come to your mind is hugely helpful.
Yeah. So. And it's so funny too, because sometimes the message collaborations are good and we change a lot of stuff. Sometimes we don't change very many. Yeah. And you guys laugh, but it's still good for me to know, okay, this makes sense at least. Because it's like, I'm giving this on Sunday, and if nobody's even read through it, how do I know that this is totally makes sense? There's been times where we haven't changed anything, but I still was unsure, and so it gives you the ability to do that. But again, more time for stories, illustrations, research, get feedback. Makes it really hard to do it if you're doing the week of. Number 4, and this has to do with that, but more has to do with your service, and that is that you have more time to add special elements. So there's kind of, and you've probably been there, like you're writing a sermon and you want to do something cool on a Sunday, but you just don't have time to pull it off. Whether it's like a song or like something you want on stage or something you want to give to your people as they're leaving the service or something you want to do in your auditorium. I don't know, like a creative element or whatever. Yeah. If you're writing the message week of and you have this idea, the chances of pulling it off are very, very slim. There's been numerous times for us where we have been able to, because we're a month ahead, say, I think I have this idea, what do you guys think, or whatever, and come up with something. Like last fall, for example, we did not the parables of Jesus. We did something, 7 weeks. The I am statements of Jesus. There you go. And each week we had something on stage that went with the statement. So like when he talked about he was the gate, we had someone create like a wooden gate. When he was the bread of life, we did communion differently. Like we had a different element each week, but we had time to plan for it, which if it was week of, there's no way we could have done it. Yeah. Even this, as of recording this week, we're in 1 Corinthians 11, 17 to 34, which is only relevant because it's a big thing on communion. So this week we're doing communion different than we've ever done it before, which would have, I guess we could have pulled it off, but it would have been confusing and difficult if we only had like 2 days to figure it out, especially for us because we have Thursday services now. Like we wouldn't have had time. And so getting more time to add special elements to the service is something that's much easier to do if you have time to plan and prepare for it.
And this is real helpful to your staff too, because most likely if you're wanting to add things, whether it's different songs or communion going differently, if you have a staff, you're not doing it all yourself. They might be doing it. You may have someone else planning some of these things. And so to kind of throw it out there 2 days, 3 days, the week of even, can be real difficult for everyone to kind of, depending on how big the thing is, scramble and try and make that thing happen by Sunday. So it helps your staff too to be able to have that time to plan out those more special or more different elements.
And we too, and I don't know what episode it is either, I'm not helpful today. We have an episode on the $5 Give Club, which is something we do. Yeah. And typically for us is the third Thursday, but because we're ahead, sometimes we can move that around too to make it go better with the message. Yeah. And it's just really helpful. Yeah. So reorder or making time for special elements is much more doable if you're not prepping week of for the brand new message. Number 5, reordering your sermons for a better fit. Now this will only happen if you're more than a week ahead, so maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks ahead. What I mean by that is there has been times where for whatever reason, you kind of write the messages or whatever, and you realize the order that we were going to do them, we want to change these. Now, it's different. Like if you're going through a book like 1 Corinthians or whatever, you can't really do that.
Right.
But if it's a topical series like we did one in August, Things Jesus Never Said, we took a break from 1 Corinthians. In the order that we were going to do it, we ended up switching for whatever reason, I can't remember. And then we got to move one for Give Club because it worked out better. But because we were 4 or 5 weeks ahead and we had, the rough outline or the message written, we were able to see, okay, what weeks work better for what things. Like we had baptism. That was why we had baptism. We weren't sure what Sunday we were going to do our baptism Sunday, and there was a certain saying that went really well with baptism and all that sort of thing. But because we were ahead, we were able to actually reorder when it was going to be preached.
Yeah. Which
again, you can only do if you're a couple weeks in front of it.
Yeah, I think it just helps to give flexibility, and you're not stuck to this rigid what in our case, Dylan or yourself or the pastor, what you say goes almost. It gives you some flexibility to change things around. We had I don't remember which series it was. We had a series, I think it was last year, where I remember I was preaching one Sunday and then Dylan is obviously preaching the next because he usually does. But when we were going through, I think it was mine when we were collabing through it, we realized that we were going to be using I think the same text or something like that.
And it was the same bottom line or something.
Yeah, it was something like that. And it was a topical series. So we obviously could choose different texts. And but if we didn't do that, then it would either have come down to, I don't know, Dylan finding out the week before that he needed to change things in his because his was after, and that would have been kind of weird to use the same 2 weeks in a row. It helps to give some flexibility. So if there are any issues arising, or if it's not issues, you just think that, hey, things would be a little bit better this way or this way, you have time to actually make those happen instead of just doing everything last minute.
Yeah, totally. So reordering the sermon, which is not something I would have ever thought I would do.
Yeah, right.
It really gives you the flexibility to do it. And then number 6, lastly, you will be glad that you did it. Now, I know some of the pushback might be, is it confusing to have like multiple sermons in your head? Like, it's like, I'm already worried enough about this week.
Right.
I guess I can't remember for me now. I guess it felt weird at first, but once you've done it for even a couple of weeks, like it's not confusing. And instead, it's actually more helpful. This is not really a point because like where you're going. Like if you're going through a book for whatever, and the next 2 weeks are kind of similar, like you can know ahead of time, hey, I need to bring out a different point out here than here, so they're different. But you'll be really glad that you did, and it's not as confusing as it seems. Now, again, you don't have to have the sermon completely done, but your research, your outline, your points should be pretty much there. And so that week of, you're just reviewing it, cutting your notes down, getting comfortable with it. I don't know anyone that did it and that was like, nope, I don't like this, got to go back.
Right.
So all that to say, it might sound confusing at first, but if you give it a shot, even if it's just a week ahead, like the next time you're not preaching, still prep a message that week, and then you're a week ahead. Or 1 week, just prep 2 messages. I know it might stink, but do it, get ahead. In my experience, I'm really glad that we're doing it. I would never go back for all of these reasons that we discussed.
Yep.
Unless something happened and you just had no time to get ahead. To the best of my ability, we're always going to do that because it's just really helpful, and I really like it.
Yeah, I think with anything, it's going to take a little more work up front, obviously, to make it happen, to go from if you're just a week of kind of person to being so far ahead. But after you get through that initial push and maybe being a little awkward at first, having multiple things in your head, I don't see any way it's not hugely helpful.
And it really isn't that you would think you get confused between them, but you don't because you just, I don't know, you just don't.
And we've seen, especially when going through books, like we're going through 1 Corinthians right now, which is long and which was dealing with a lot of topics where, because Dylan's been so far out, when it comes into certain texts that they kind of touch on a few different things, been able to say like, okay, I'm not going to spend much time on this thing because I know it's coming back in 3 weeks or something. Yep. Where if you're just doing week of, sure, maybe the idea is coming, but you don't know how much time you're going to be spending on it until you actually write that message. So
that's totally true.
It's good.
So hey, those are 6 benefits of staying ahead in sermon prep. It might be weird at first, but we found it really beneficial. Yeah, and you can do it. So thanks for being with us today on Practical Church Planning. If you're new to listening, be sure to subscribe. Yeah. Also on Facebook, if you type in Practical Church Planning, we've got a group that you can interact with others. Yeah. Or practicalplanting.com, and you can find show notes to all of our episodes.
Sure can.
We'll be with you next time on Practical Church Planning. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planning. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planning, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform.
And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast if you just search Practical Church Planning on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe.
See you next time.